Hey, it's Amethyst Virgo. Now, during this video, you might start asking questions like, how did she come up with this? Where is she getting these ideas from? How can this be? Please feel free to join my course, Sun and Moon Deep Dive. So, this is great for anyone. If you are a beginner, if you are someone who's more experienced, but you still don't have a format for how to really analyze the sun and the moon throughout houses, aspects, decans, through degrees. This is a great course. It is self-paced, and I check the link in the description box or in the comments, and please support, and I promise you will probably not be disappointed. So let's jump into this. So the degree in your chart. Now again, this is not something everybody's going to use. This is how I interpret. Now I can't give everything away because it's not a birth chart reading, and my course will actually tell you more about how to interpret degrees, and it'll give you way more practice and some examples as well. But let's jump into it. So for example, if I'm looking here at this person's chart, the degree, okay, it's at first degree. First thing I'm going to do is look at the sun is in Aquarius. So I'm going to interpret what does that mean to be the sun in Aquarius. But then if I'm focusing on how does this Aquarius differ from the Aquarius that I know that's at the 21st degree or the 14th degree, I would go through what does it mean to be a first degree Aquarius person. Okay, and so again, you can click to your sun degree, you can click to anyone else's. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, most people have not looked at their degree if they are basic beginning astrologers. You've not looked at your degree, you're probably not thinking about that yet. But as you get more into astrology and you want to differentiate between yourself, your family member, or other people, you have to get into these more advanced techniques because the sun is still important, which is why I did the course. Even though I'm an astrologer, I know a lot of things about all the planets, but the sun and the moon are our anchors. And so if we understand those, then we'll understand everything else too. Now again, these are the degree systems that I use. Not every astrologer is going to use this. And I always say it's important to know how and why you are applying certain strategies in astrology. If we start going too much on only our personal experiences and what signs we like and what degrees do this and that, we are not actually using the knowledge of astrology, and it makes it harder to interpret. So when you are doing astrology and learning astrology, you sometimes do have to take a back seat to your own bias and try to understand it intricately, so that way we're not just applying our own experiences and we're not actually learning. Because when we learn everything, or as much as we can, then we can help many people instead of just only the people we like or the people that we think are like us, right? And so again, this is my degree way in which I deal with this. Again, to figure out more, feel free to check the course out. So the sun at the 0 degree. There's a lot of uncertainty at times when the degree is at the 0 degree, when any planet is at the 0 degree. We know that the 0 and 29 in many astrologers' toolkit is considered to be one to really be aware of, because the energy is not going to be full, right? So the 0, it's coming from the old sign. The 29, it's about to go into a new sign. So with the 0 degree, I typically say there's not, the confidence sometimes has to be worked on with the 0 degree person, or they can be too confident, and it could be, now depending on the sign, the 0 degree could be too confident in terms of it's so eager. Think of the Fool card in tarot, that it struggles sometimes to really get its footing, because there can be this kind of, how children can sometimes be really bold and like, I can do it, I've got it, when really you sometimes have to learn what you say that you're good at. And so the 0s are usually straddling one of those different extremes, either too confident because they're so eager to do something, or lacking the full development because the 0 degree. Now again, especially if that person has that sun at the 0 degree conjunct another planet in the other sign. Let's say they have 3 signs in, Gemini, and those signs are all late degree Gemini, and they're conjunct the person's 0 degree Cancer sun, right? So this person actually is more familiar with this Gemini energy, but it has to function as a Cancer sun person. And so that can be something to, an example for you to see is that, they're not always, they're not always going to do the things they're actually good at first. Like this could be a person trying to formulate and understand their full identity, because 0 is not even the 1. And so 0 has a lot of potential, because this typically is going to be a person who really grows throughout time. It's like the person that you're like, oh my goodness, when you were a kid, I didn't know you were going to end up being a doctor. Or wow, we were a little confused about you at first because you didn't know what to do with yourself when you were a teenager. Like you were all over the place. Like 0s have the ability, it's like, think of it as clay. And I'm not saying these people are moldable. I just say there's this opportunity. And that's why I say it can go either way. It really will depend. This degree is a little bit different. It's going to depend on other factors. And like I said before, what is the sun conjuncting? Is the sun squaring anything? Degrees are going to be super, super important when you have a degree like 0, where you're really trying to understand what's going to influence this energy the most. Okay. But again, if you know tarot, the Fool card, it's full of opportunity. It sometimes can feel a little bit more, hesitant to fully step into full identity. But then at the end of the day, it has a lot of opportunity, because this is going to typically be a person that's had to grow. They've had to fill their bucket, so to speak. They're not always born with this bucket of always having everything that they know they are or that they need to be, but it also allows for experience as well. The sun in the first degree. Typically with the sun in the first degree, now this is a 1, and so no, this degree system is not linked to numerology. So I'm not using numerology right now. Now, do I use numerology in readings at times in terms of life path numbers, or in terms of that symbolism? Sometimes, yes. But this is not that. So if you use that system, this is a little bit different. I do respect other systems. There's an astrologer that I really like. She just tells it like it is. Rabina Rastaban, but she uses a different degree system than me, but I totally understand her interpretation practices. So keep that in mind. It's okay to have different views on certain things, because the truth of astrology will always come out no matter what system or house system you use, or even if you're using different systems. So sometimes I think the first degree people can be a bit lonely or feel that way, especially if you have maybe a sun in the 12th house or sun in the 8th house or something like that. Ones kind of always feel like no matter how many people are around, you still have to go at things alone. A lot of ones have a story. A lot of ones, if you speak to them, will probably have this like, I had to do it on my own. Or, there was times in my life where I had to. Now, does it always mean you didn't have anyone? No. It doesn't mean that you're completely isolated. It simply means you have that feeling because you have that inner desire and drive. Because even when you have people around you, the one is going to know when something's not for it. The one, you can look at that even like a little Aries type of energy. Even if you have a sign that's not Aries-like, if you have a sign like a Virgo or a Pisces, that one energy is always going to make this person a little bit lively in some way, or defensive, or very preserving the self. It's going to be very important for the number 1 to kind of always come out on top in some way. And so when you combine a 1 degree with a sign in the chart that in some fire energy, it could be good because the person's going to keep going usually. Okay. Now the sun in the second degree, sometimes you can see a person who's consistent in their traits. These people are not, you're typically not going to be confused by their actions. Now, can you? Yes. If we look at the rest of the chart, I've always told people the best way to understand your whole chart is to get a reading, or to fully really spend time with your own chart and analyzing all of the, interesting things about it. And when I say get a reading, I'm not telling someone to get it from me. If you find someone else that can do that, that's great. But the reason I say that is because we have to look at the entire chart in consideration. And when someone does a chart, they can say, well, this means this, but this means that, and this means that. Oh, you had that question. Actually, it's not that. It's this planet that's causing that. And that really helps people move forward, because the second degree, yeah, I could say you're typically not going to be confused by these people. They are what they are. Even if they're in a more immutable sign, or a sign that can change actions, it's what you're probably going to get from this individual, or this individual cares a little bit more. Now, again, the second is an early degree. But it is going to care a little bit more about trying to gain its footing. Remember, in tarot, when you look at the balance, right? How 2 swords can be balanced, and how the 2 of pentacles is juggling, right? 2s are always trying to find some sort of duality. And so 2s, to be stable, there's always going to need to be this kind of give-take type of energy from this individual that you're typically going to see. And so no matter how off the, rails some of them are, or if they have certain different energy in their chart where they're a little bit more rebellious, the 2s are always going to come back to what they know, or they're always going to come back in a way to what makes them feel sense of stability. The third degree sun, you can get a communicative person. This is a person who wants to be heard. They, either through how they speak, how, it can also be through writing, but this person has to be heard. This is a part of the core identity of the self. And they acknowledge you though. They can, some of them can talk kind of fast, right? Not all, again, it's going to depend. If you're like, wait, but that's not me. Well, okay, well, if you have Sun in Scorpio 3rd degree, conjunct Mercury in your 8th house, and Mercury's in retrograde, well, that will explain why it doesn't fit you. And what I will tell people is descriptions fit. And if you do this long enough, yes, it will. You see that person, oh, they don't seem like an Aries. Well, in what area of their life is their Aries energy going to show up? Some people don't show their full range of who they are because of image or because of social pressure. So we have to understand that descriptions and energy and sign energy will show up. It's the astrologer's job to figure out when and where and how do you work with that. But the 3rd degree, like, think about these people. It's communication is important. And you might say, well, even if it's a child, talking to that child, bringing that, like, sometimes you're going to see a person, you're going to think this person's quiet, but if you get them talking, they're actually going to reveal how they really feel. And these are good techniques to use with people where you don't obviously always see what's on the outside. So when you this is another thing you can test out. You don't have to fully believe in this degree system, but you can use it with certain people and see who it's relevant with. Now the Sun at 4th, I would say there tends to be a focus on warmth and connectivity. The person tends to like to nurture whatever their traits are. This is a Sun in Cancer person. There's an emphasis and awareness on my emotions and my needs need to be taken care of. A Cancer person at a different degree, you might see a different awareness with that, right? If you have a Sun in 4th degree person who is Virgo, there's a need for them to nurture and develop their ideas in a way in which they help them make decisions that create a system of functionality in their lives, right? I'm comfortable doing this. I'm gonna make make some updates to my home. I'm gonna renovate my home so I can feel more comfortable. Do you see what I'm saying? This is why I say interpretation gets really deep. And I can give more examples another day. There are more examples in the course, but I did want to share, like, that's a way in which you can see a degree it's a layer. It's not something that's going to make the whole person, but this degree can be helpful in understanding them a little bit more. Now, the Sun in the 5th degree, thinking of one right now, these are expressive people. Now, if they're not expressive, what are they good at? Because 5 energy is loud. It's this color yellow right here, okay? So 5s are expressive. The identity needs to be worn. So it sometimes is like, oh, this person's really chill, but look at what they wear. The 5s have to be seen. And so you're going to have to look at the sign itself to see what is it, right? Is the person seen? Because you can have a person who's an artist. They're Virgo, the 5th degree artist, and maybe it's in the 5th house or something, or the 1st house or something, and they're loud with how they create. It's like, I need you to see, I did this with intention, right? Look at the strokes of the paint, right? That could be a Virgo way. Like, you ever met a person who explains with detail how they did something and they want you to see how great it is? That's a Virgo. Now, you could say, also that would be Virgo energy sometimes with fire. The Virgo that's proud of their work, that wants you to see their work, a lot of times it's fire, or especially that Leo and Virgo combination. Okay. Now, the Sun, the 6th house, you tend to get a person who's dedicated. They might always feel like they have to prove themselves in some way. This person is always trying to think of ways in which they need to prove or show that they can do something. 6 is a pretty modest degree there. You can get a person who's always kind of working on something. Now, depending on the rest of the chart, that could be good. Or if it's a person that changes and adapts too much, they have too much mutability in the chart and not enough signs keeping them anchored, this could be a person that's always trying to fix something about themselves, but do you stay the course is always the question when you have a person who's trying to adapt a lot and fix and be productive, but also at the same time it can be really dedicated to things. But it will depend on the sign and the placements, because if you're too dedicated to people feeling impressed by what you do, that's a different energy than a person who seeks self-improvement because they like to be better versions of themselves. But when you see 6, yes, that's more about some type of level of improvement there. It's dedicated energy typically. Now, the Sun to the 7th, Sun degree 7, Sun at the 7th degree. Typically getting along with others is important, even in more independent signs. Yes, I've seen a sign like Aries, 7th degree. Well, now we're dealing with a different type of Aries person. where, yeah, you can still have those Aries traits, but the degree changes a little bit more how the person may want. Now, it doesn't mean they're perfect at it. You can have a person who has conflicts in their seventh house, but they're in Aries, the seventh degree. And so we have to kind of figure out, well, you want and yearn. A part of your traits is you yearn to have good connections with people. It's like the child in school trying to find friends, but they're going about it in the wrong way. And you have to teach them how to peacefully coexist and cooperate with people in order to get those relationships that they desire. So me just saying the seventh degree doesn't mean everybody's relationships are going to be great because of the seven. It just means you're getting along with others is important, even in those independent signs, those signs that a little bit prefer to kind of be on their own. But when you see a 7-degree sun, you can say to yourself, oh wait, part of their traits is going to be bringing other people into the fold. Okay, that's a 7th-degree Scorpio person, but oh, they love and crave somebody to share all that deep secret stuff with, right? Now, the sun at the 8th degree, we can get like an intense energy, people that tend to take themselves seriously, in that regard. You would want to dig beneath the surface of this individual if everything is not straightforward, okay? And so when you would see something like this is, let's say you have a person who is on the outside, you see something, but you sense there's something else about them. You're like, but there's something I just can't put my finger on. Or there's something, they're hiding. And it's not always bad. It's just sometimes some people just don't feel like who they are is going to be accepted. And that can sometimes lead them to recoil into themselves or only show themselves around certain people. And so I'm not saying all 8th-degree people are going to be that way. But I mean, when you have an 8th-degree person, understand that things are intense to them. And if people can't protect what they are, if they don't feel protected, they're not going to let you join in. They're not going to let you come into the fold. Okay? It's like that person you didn't know was nice until you went to their house after school and you realized the way they were acting was a defense mechanism because they were teased or because they feel more comfortable at home with all their belongings and their stuff where they can really be who they are. So the 8s tend to need to understand, like if you want to understand them, you have to really get deep into their world. You have to allow yourself some time to develop trust from them in order to really see the level of complexity. There's tend to be a little complexity there. Now, the sun at the 9th degree, well, you could get a person who's typically, they kind of explore themselves. I think even their own identities. Sometimes you can see a person, if it's not, the sun is not well aspected, they could be in search of who they are. There could be this constant need to just develop themselves. But again, remember, a 9 is going to be more of that mutable energy. And it's sometimes going to be like exploring, trying to figure out life. And it happens with the sun sign. And so it will depend on the sun sign, of course, to see what that looks like. If you have a person with sun in Cancer, 9th degree, well, where's that sun at? Is it in the 9th house? I mean, is it in the 5th house where this person has emotional attachments to people? It's like they like to feel special. Sun in 5th, it's in Cancer, there's an emotional need, but 9 is mutable, so it's like maybe they attach themselves to different people emotionally through dating and things of that nature. Now, it will depend on the person's energy and the rest if that works out for them or not, but that would be an example of how you can interpret using the degree. Now, the sun at the 10th degree, you might get a cautious type of energy with this person. Even if they seem more carefree about other things in their life, when it comes to themselves, there could be this need for self-preservation. This could be the person who's like, oh, no, that's going to be bad for my image. Yeah, I know I did all this stuff, but I don't want anyone to know about it. But it's different than the 8. The 8, it's more of the fear of the vulnerability. With the 10, it's more of the need to curate and control the image and the narrative of who they are. This would be different than a 22, where success is in reach. The 10 is striving and never stops. The 10 is striving for something. Now, you have to be careful with my interpretation because you might say, oh, they're going to be a CEO. No, if a person's vision of success is being the best partier and, doing all that type of stuff, if the person wants to, if they live a very reckless life, then that can become a part of their core identity because yes, they might care about how they're perceived, but sometimes some people, they might have a bad image, but they like it if they get attention for it. So 10s need to feel that they are the top at something. They're good at that thing. And sometimes that can cause a person to have too much pressure on themselves. And sometimes if a person can't get attention for something good, or they can't be seen as successful for something good, they can veer to something bad. You want to look at those Pluto aspects, Mars, Saturn, or anything like that as well, or see if they have any risk-taking type of energy. So that's why I say, this isn't just, okay, if your sun in 10th degree, what we need to now, again, I can't interpret via YouTube, that's for readings, but now it's a sun in 10, okay, what is that? Okay, sun in 10 in Taurus, that's going to be different than sun in 10 with Capricorn. And again, my course goes for some of this. So the sun in 11th degree, 11 degrees, I mean, the individuals can sometimes often feel that they need a support system. They are connected to people, but sometimes the 11s can have difficult experiences with feeling fully accepted. And so what happens is there's this quest sometimes to find people who are like them, find people who will understand and accept who they are. And the 11, but it's through the sun sign traits, right? So the sun in Pisces is seeking connection to people who are as empathetic as them, or sometimes as what's my video? The shadow side of each sign, or the way each sign copes with trauma. If you have an unevolved Pisces person, you could have a person who is wallowing in self-pity and despair, and they find people like them, right? So, or you could find a person with the sun at the 11th degree, but it's in, it's Taurus. It's like, I'm finding people like me because growing up, I didn't feel that I had enough money growing up. Maybe it's a sun in Taurus with Saturn in Taurus as well. And you know the story about Saturn and Taurus energy people. They can be very successful, but sometimes it's quintessential rags to riches type of energy. So what I would say with that, it's important is with that Taurus is like, okay, finding people who look the part like me, or who value items, or who value things that I value, because growing up I didn't have that opportunity and it was important to me. Now again, we know Taurus can also be self-worth. It's not just about material items, but it all depends on the other energy in the chart, of course, to see what it is. But the 11s are seeking that connection. It's not an emotional connection though. It's more of this kind of level of acceptance and this level of belonging to something that you can sometimes see there. Okay, especially if they've at any point felt like they weren't belonging, or they weren't allowed to fully be, they weren't around people that they could relate to. The 12 degrees can tend to be adaptable, receptive. There is a softer energy sometimes with 12s. Now again, so you got to be careful what you are associated with at a 12th degree, because it does become a little bit malleable. And it can be great in terms of people who have more spiritual elements in their chart, of course, the 12th degree, but it also would depend, because it's a very receptive energy. And so if you're receptive and you're doing something with that, like, oh, wow, I'm so empathetic, I can help people who need my help, I know exactly what you need. That is different than literally just receiving all this energy. I don't know if I've talked about it on this channel before, or if it was on my podcast, that the idea of being an empath and feeling what everyone feels is not all it's not all good, right? Like, you don't want to feel everything someone feels. You want to be perceptive and intuitive enough to know what people need if they are in need of your help. You are not absorbing everyone's energy, or you should be working spiritually on yourself if you are absorbing everyone's energy. Because spiritualists and people who even are mediums and etc. will tell you that they have to sometimes turn that off, or they have ways in which they deal with that energy. But the sun in the 12 is great for like this kind of empathy energy, I would say. It's kind of good for that. People who are more into that, again, because to be malleable is to also be allowing yourself, your imagination, to be who you want to be. So 12s can be great when they are put in the right position, or they are attracting the right people who are showing them a positive way to be, but it can sometimes be a little problematic. The sun at 12th degree could be this sentiment of, I need to be free from anything that does not let me be myself. I need to feel this sense of freedom. Independence is important to me. Being sovereign is important to me. When you have like a 13 degree energy, we are getting a little bit of fiery energy. It's a little bit Aries-like in nature. So you do want to be keen on that. Now, if you see a child, your child's 13th degree, how do you allow them to have that range? If you have a partner with a 13th degree, how do you make sure not that they don't feel smothered? How do you allow their natural traits, because in a relationship you don't have to be involved in every single thing your partner does. If you have a healthy relationship but your partner has a hobby or a job that has nothing to do with you, and they get great pride in it. Let's say the person is a Sun 13th degree in the 10th house. They want to direct and shine on their own accord. So though you can collaborate on the household and the kids, this might not be a person who needs their partner to meddle as much in their career. When you do have other people with placements that show, oh yeah, you're going to benefit from your partner. You're going to benefit from working with your partner. Maybe a person has Sun conjunct Venus in the 7th house. Okay, well maybe you benefit from working as business partners with your spouse. Whereas a Sun by itself in the 13th degree, in the 10th house, perhaps there's a little bit more need for autonomy. And so if you understand people's energy, you're going to understand why sometimes they don't invite you into certain areas of their lives. It's not always that they don't want you to be there. It's they don't need that. They want to shine on their own accord. Okay. It's like the person who wants to do it on their own. They don't want their brother to go help them get a job. They want to do it on their own. Right. The Sun at the 14th degree typically doesn't want to change or blend, a little bit resistant. There's a resistance here because there has been a buildup perhaps of this person and sometimes needing to shed certain negative experiences. And so some people rise to the challenge. They have negative experiences and then they become really strong at knowing what they want and what they don't want and what is not going to work for them. And that can sometimes be your 14. Your 14 doesn't want to change, doesn't want to blend. And this can be good for knowing what someone is going to be. What can I expect from this person, right? That's helpful. When the person is a 14th degree, you kind of can ask that question, because consistency is important. And I know people view earth signs as boring or whatever, but I'm like, look, I'm sorry. How many of you want to guess when you're going to get your paycheck? How many of you want to guess if somebody's going to show up or not? How many of you want to guess if the repairman is coming over? You don't want to guess. You want to know this is consistent. This person's business is consistent. My partner is consistent. People want consistency, but you're not willing to accept the signs that give it, right? And by signs, I don't just mean letting those people in your life. I mean that energy. And so 14th degree, think of it as a very Taurian type of energy. The Sun of the 15th degree would be communicative, but unlike the 3rd degree, it's a little bit more responsive. And I think the 15, it's more to study or learn. The 3rd is that natural curiosity. We can see the 15 degree Sun person, it's a little bit more reactive and responsive. Now, when I say reactive, responsive, it would depend on other elements of the chart. People who like to write it out instead of speaking it, who need time to think, that's sometimes those Mercuries and the water houses sometimes need time to think. Even the Mercury in the 2nd house, often I need time to process this. Maybe even 8th, I need time to process this, right? That's what you're getting there. So what I mean is, that's what I'm helping people understand, is the range in which I'm talking about this. This is a very general video. Sun in 15. Wait, are we talking about Sun in 15 Taurus? Are we talking about Sun in 15 Gemini? Are we talking about Sun in 15 in the 4th house? Again, that is all chart interpretation, but right now we're looking at this through a general lens, and for you to understand how it would be relevant would be to look at your own chart and to make those distinctions. Now, the Sun at 16th degree, you gather a little bit more of an emotional intelligence. The intuition, the intuitive abilities are a little bit more fine-tuned. And it's 16th, it's where emotions become intentional. And I want us to look at the fact when we talk about emotions, people really downplay the importance of emotions. They downplay sensitivity, they downplay feelings, they downplay emotions, they downplay intuition. People downplay it, but look, if you can know something under the surface and you don't need to tell everybody your every move, that's actually very smart and strategic, right? But with the 16, it's more intentional. Now, you might say, but wait, I know someone with Sun in 16 and they played me and they did this. Well, look, let me tell you something. It depends on the chart, but also I would say that's emotional intelligence can be manipulation. Well, what if this person has the Sun and Mercury square Pluto? Well, dang, you're definitely going to get a person that can manipulate you through their traits. They might seem sweet and serene on the outside, but on the inside, there's something else brewing. There's something else under the surface that they actually have, right? Let me give an example. This is, again, if you have these placements, I'm not talking about you specifically. You have Sun and Mercury in Leo. Okay, great, shine, performance. Sometimes these people can be a little bit they're going to be open, right? There's going to be an openness to typically these individuals in some way, you know, and known and seen for what they say, Sun conjunct Mercury, but that's Leo, and then it's squaring Pluto and Scorpio. Wow, they're gonna, you know, this person might tell you what they want you to hear. They don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but behind the scenes there might be something else brewing. Now again, this is me not looking at you as an individual or your own chart. When I do chart interpretations, it's more than just analysis. It's also me reading the intuitive lens of who you are as well to give you insight. So that's just something that, I would say about that. People are like, wait, that sounds too nice. My ex didn't do that. Well, we're not doing his chart or her chart right now. But I did want to share that that example. Now the Sun to 17 degree is more about expressing a sense of joy. It's often a part of the energy this individual has. It's like always working towards something. It's like the person who's like, you know what, I think if I do this, I'll be happier. You know, if I think I do this, I'll be happier. If, you know, and the 17 is trying to develop a way in which it can be seen for what it's good at typically. So 17s have this kind of like, it's a modality of, not to be confused with the modalities between, you know, cardinal, fixed, and mutable, but it's a modality of trying really hard to refine, but it's not refining like Virgo energy. The 17 is trying to figure out a way in which to be its best self. So a 17-degree person, you could assume there's always going to be a way this person is reflecting or trying to become a better version. So if you're thinking of someone with potential, you can see that. Like if I see someone with Venus 17 degree in the sixth house, Venus is in Libra, 6th house, 17. This might be a person that's always going to work on their relationship. They're going to care about working on the relationship to revive it, to make it something special. Now again, I know I just brought up Venus, but you can sometimes use the degrees for planets too. Sun at 18. I do know in astrology that sometimes people fear the number 18. Okay. Now I don't typically use that, but I do know of an astrologer that I followed who did talk about this. So I always encourage people to, as you become interested in astrology, you can like different astrologers for different reasons. Okay. It doesn't mean that they're wrong or they're right or this person's this and it's a battle, but you can definitely do that. Now I'm going to tell you what I use it for. 18s, man, this is refinement. This is refinement, and this is a very hard-working sign, but sometimes it can become exhausted because it's involved in a lot of different things. And so 18s do have to be mindful of like that, being involved in a lot. It's a mutable sign, but it's also one of the later degree systems you could say Virgo. And so there's this kind of always doing something, always working on something, and trying to fix something, being involved. How involved do you really want to be? Now, it could be positive for some people, especially if there's the sun conjuncting certain planets. You know, if you could have a person that you're like, you know what? They're lazy around the house, but when they go to work, they do their job, right? Or the person who's getting awards employee of the month at work and their brother's like, they don't even pick up around the house, right? That could be an 18th degree thing, because 18s are going to work hard for where they have influence and where they are going to be useful. If you don't make someone feel useful, they're probably not going to work as hard at what you want them to do. Whereas when you start to make people feel rewarded and seen, you might get a little bit more productivity out of them. But being careful, the 18 of the exhaustion, of like overdoing it, of being too involved in things, believing things can be fixed that can't be fixed, which can lead to some problems. Sun at the 19th degree. I think this is where there's like a collaborative type of energy, like the 7, but I'm getting more of this. This would be more of a powerful alliances. It's not just I need to connect to people, I need to relate to people. It's the 19 has a little bit more the sun traits. They blend or lean, or they are contributing to something else beside themselves. This could be people that have successful unions, people who have like the way in which their traits, their natural sun core traits attract people to them who can benefit them, especially if there's any positive Jupiter aspects in their chart. And purposeful alliances. The 19, it's like these people are more intentional, I would say, about what they attach themselves to, which companies they work for. It's not just, I want to work for this company because I know someone there. It's like, I want to work for this company because I know that these people have a lot of good connections and I can get it, or, the 19 is just a really good one also in terms of, it allows for even like a little bit of, coherence and understanding even what ways in which to join with people who complement you. So it's a deeper version of the 7. Now, so if we're looking at the sun at the 20th degree, what we will tend to get here is the sun sign traits. There should be a level of depth to the individual, or there's transformational types of themes. So you could have a person who, wants to devote themselves to something that's a worthy cause of becoming, right? So for example, let's say you have a Gemini sun person, and there's this generalization. Okay, Gemini, they like to talk, they like to learn, they like to share what's on their mind. They can, change very quickly, those types of things. But at the 20th degree, that Gemini individual would tend to want to transform because of the things that they learn, the things that they experience or study becomes a part of their core being. So when you have a 20th degree person of any sign, typically, now again, you would have to look at the entire chart, you may see some level of that. There's a difficulty they may have with not being taken seriously, and they don't like for people to limit them. So if the 20th degree person, there does tend to be this self-awareness, not a little bit different than the energy I would say of like a 13 or a 25 or a 1, which is more fiery, but you wouldn't want to limit these people, and they like to be good at whatever they do. When you see a 20th degree person or energy in a planet or whatever, now again, we're not talking about aspects right now, and that we're talking about just using this this degree system, what it could potentially mean for interpretation. So for certain, for most people, there is a need to whatever it is that they are to become, right? It's like, oh, I'm interested in that, but it's more, right? And remember, the sun is the traits, and so these traits, it's going to be a part of their core identity. Now, the sun of the 21st degree, you could typically see a person who becomes wiser in age no matter the sign. That if you see a 21, experience is going to be their best teacher, and sometimes it may be frustrating to understand that energy, because a lot of times we think people should follow a certain protocol or a certain formula in order to be successful or in order to be mature. But for many people, they don't learn from what you told them. They're not going to learn from just opening up a book. They're going to learn from life, and they're going to have to maybe make those mistakes in order to really get to that point. But it doesn't mean this person is a blank slate. There is a focus a little bit on this need to gain and achieve wisdom through how they move through life, and whatever their sun placement can be a part of that, as well as the traits. Like for example, a sun in Pisces at the 21st degree person may learn through experience how to handle sensitivity better, right? But it's not going to be because you told them toughen up. It's going to be because of their willingness to take a chance. This is where I say, but you would have to be careful, because if that sun is squaring Jupiter, that person has now doubts about taking risks, even though it's healthy for their sun's development. The sun of the 22nd degree, we would get more, again, there's a repetition of this kind of serious type of energy, but it's inflexibility. And it's a little bit different than the 10, that I said a 10 can maybe have that level of caution, or that 10 could have more of that taking themselves seriously. But the 22 is the person that kind of keeps on winning. Or it's important for them to keep on winning, and you can sometimes dislike this because you might have to work harder than this person, but they don't have to work as hard. But sometimes there's hidden traits, talents, and skills people have that you're not privy to. So we do have to be careful when we say someone, well, I worked harder than them. Well, maybe you did, but maybe we don't know the full story of how that person is getting to where they want to get to. So 22s are kind of like this level of inflexibility. There is not going to be a lot of not easily moldable. When you see a 22, even if it's an immutable sign, you would want to see like this is not going to be someone that you are imposing yourself on. More so what you're doing is you're around them, probably supporting their endeavors and supporting what they're doing. But in terms of how their personality can come across, you can see that level of this person not wanting to merge too much with other people. Or even if they seem like they do, there's always this kind of thing they want. And it helps them perhaps be someone that does know how to land on top, that does understand how to move forward, that does understand how to take a bad situation and make it something successful. So that could be the positive of that. Now, the sun of the 23rd degree person, there's going to need to be there's a feeling of the self, the core self, that I'm comfortable or I am conscious of feeling confident when I'm a part of something, when I'm a part of a community. But it's not just a part of a community like the 11, it's I'm a part of a community that's going somewhere, it's moving forward. So this is where you do start to see a little bit more of there being intentionality and purpose. The 23 likes to be involved in something bigger than themselves. You know, you can maybe see an Aries, the 23rd degree, and say, well, you know, okay, well, the Aries, I know what that sign's like, but the 23rd degree, they want to bring their level of taking the lead in something that is meaningful or something that is a group, an organization, some type of community that needs them. You get what I'm saying? So the 23, you do tend to see that there's and again, it does tend to be more of a air quality to it, but they want to be a part of something that's driving to a particular meaning, cause, that is meant to be something that can transcend their own ego sometimes. So there's something just to keep in mind about that. Now, if you are 23 and you haven't done that yet, that can maybe be the hidden puzzle piece to why you're dissatisfied. Some people's core identity and traits are best given to communities. Some people, it's not that you can't stand on your own, but for some reason, when you come together with other people, you kind of fill in the gaps. Or when you come together with other people, your energy activates a little bit better than the 23rd, right? The 23rd degree. Sometimes these people do have to learn how to be alone. So that 24th degree, I think it's kind of similar in a way to 21st. There's a level of wisdom that you do tend to see and get with these 20s, right? These degrees, okay? They're a little bit more advancing on the prior degrees in that subset. Now, with this, I would say sometimes 24, there's an old soul type of energy sometimes to the individual, and it can frustrate you because I've always said old soul energy, people who are old souls, they're not rushing. They don't rush. And sometimes they can know things, or they just kind of make decisions, and it's like, how did you know that? Or, you know, this person may not have to go through all the things you go through in order to learn something. So it's a different side of the coin than a 21st that I just talked about. So the 24, like, you know, and sometimes they can feel out of place, because if you do kind of feel like you already know how something's going to go, or you're not in a rush to do everything. You're not in a rush to do everything because you understand that things will happen with time. There's more of a patient flow here, but it's not patient in the same sense of a Taurus being patient. It's more patient because there is a attunement with what actually matters. So this 24 could be the person that comes alive when it's something they really care about. When it's something they really devote themselves to, oh, they're all in. And you see their sun qualities really magnified. Now, again, it will depend on the sign, how that energy is projected. Because, of course, a 24th degree sun Taurus is going to be different than an Aquarius and so forth. Now, the sun of the 25th degree is ready to go. It's fiery. If it's in a cardinal sign, even better. These individuals are learning. Eventually, when they blossom, it's typically a beautiful thing because they do start to gain a sense of where their power lies. And if they were stuck at some point in their life, you do tend to see some of these 25s, they're always on the move. They're on the move. And if you ever look at a person that's a 25 or 25 degree specifically, or they have that Aries energy in them in some way, or they're fiery, or let's say we're not even talking about astrology, you don't know someone's sign or degree. Anyone, like there's some people that we can look at them and say, oh yeah, well, I don't really know if they know what they're doing, or yeah, you know, they're you know, I don't know, they haven't picked a major yet, or you know, they always are going from job to job. But guess what? In time, once they get their momentum going, 25th degree can be really successful and entrepreneurial, and it can be really focused as even like a business-minded person. But it's like what they want from the world, they're going to get. They're going to get it, but they're not going to get it in a probing, in a slow way. They're not going to get it in a, you know, contemplative way. It's going to be by taking things by force, and not by force in a way that's negative, but like, I want that, I'm going for it, and I don't care if I doubt. I don't care if I have people who say I can't do it. I don't care if people like me don't usually succeed in that area. I'm going to do it anyway. And it's important to note that because sometimes, you know, we can see people that we think, oh, they're not going to make it, or, you know, they're struggling in life, but it's really, they need to be in the right place. It's like, we're going to drop things we don't want. 25th degree, I'm dropping that. I don't want that. I don't need it. So it's not always that they are Yes, in youth, everyone has different traits, right? In youth, even though we are the same, there are parts of us that are not developed. It's just what it is. If you're young, there are parts of you that are not fully developed yet. There are parts of you don't know are strengths yet. There are parts of you that are challenges that you need to work on before you fully come into your full power, right? And so that's experience of life. And that's why I say astrology isn't about just opening a book and making a decision. It's about life. And it's about living your life and then comparing it to the astrology. But 25's, if you see the 25th degree somewhere, this does tend to be a person that can have enterprise. There's a person that's typically going to be successful in that area. Now, again, we could be, it doesn't have to be business, doesn't have to be money. It could be the 11th house. Well, they're successful in terms of their social life, right? It can be the 3rd degree. They're successful in terms of their studying and their learning. Maybe the rest of their life is all over the place based on the rest of the chart. But when it comes to taking the test and passing things and learning, they can do it. Now, the sun at the 26th degree, resources are usually very, very important. Like the person's self-worth may be attached to what they accumulate in life. Resources build up later on. This is another one where I say don't doubt them, okay? Right, like we look at the degrees, the earlier degrees, of course, are going to have more of that energy, that foundational energy. The middle is going to be more of that trying, striving for something. And the end is we're now near what we wanted in the first place, right? And so we get to see the results a little bit more. And so, you know, exactly at 26 degrees, if I'm looking at like Capricorn or something like that, I'm like, oh, wow, this might have taken a long time for this person, but they have what they need. And so the 26th degree becomes about resources, and the person's very resourceful. And this could be a person that has a wealth of knowledge. Maybe they're a Sagittarius sun at the 26th degree. And so their wealth comes from their knowledge, right? The wealth from Aquarius comes from their ability to change something into something we didn't think of before. We didn't notice that that was going to be, you know, that's a great idea. That's very inventive. You're very creative. You're very unique, right? Now, again, we have to look at the whole chart because there are different types of each sign of person, as we know. But that's an example that I'm giving about an Aquarius at 26 degree. We're going to see this as a person that can be resourceful. They could be, you know, they might want to be useful to society, or what they do and what they accumulate and what they have allows for them to change something radically for the better, right? Or they use like their inventive, creative way in order to really achieve and attain what they want. Now, at the 27th degree, we're going to get communicative person who is telling the world what they think, though. So this differs from what I said about a 3 and a 15th degree. If you go back to that, this is now a person who maybe they're publishing, maybe they're writing a book, especially if they're sun at 27th degree in the 9th house. The 9th house is known for publishing. So, you know, this individual's communicative spirit is not just communicating with the people around them. The 27th degree, it now becomes important. Now, you can have blockages in your chart. You can have squares and oppositions to your sun where you're not really doing what you're supposed to be doing and you feel unfulfilled. That's when people start to doubt themselves. They have low self-esteem. They don't understand themselves. There's a blockage to the sun in some way, usually. And so, yes, so the 27th, you can be more seen or noticed for what it is that you produce in terms of what you write, what you say, what you think. It kind of takes on a life of its own in a way. The sun at the 28th degree, this is like, you know, an emotional one. A need to win is emotional. The need to succeed is emotional. It comes from a place of needing to feel successful, and it's not just about the tangible rewards, it's about the internal feeling. But when a person internally wants to win, sometimes that can win out over the person who just wants the monetary rewards. Because if you just want what's on the outside and all of a sudden you don't see, oh, that's not enough money or that's not enough, people can ditch things really quickly when they see like, oh, it doesn't have the value I wanted. I don't want that one. I want the other one. But when something's internal, it means more to you because it's from you. It's your drive. It's not just about the surface level stuff. And so the 28th degree, you can get a passionate person who cares so much about winning. Maybe you have a passionate coach who's a good coach because they care so much about winning. So we can look at it, it's like, oh, that coach just wants to win awards and wants to win championships, but really it's because of the inner drive, right? So the 28, we start to get the outer success, but the outer success is typically matched by the inner need from the person. And so if you see like the 28th degree kid, you have find what they're passionate about, find what they really like, because that's what they're going to put a lot of effort into, and allow for those things to develop. If a person has more of an internal drive, that's what you have to meet head on a little bit more. It's not about dangling things in oh, look, I'll buy you this, I'll get you this. It's find what that person really wants, because now, especially if they had a chart where the moon is more important. Maybe they had positive aspects to the moon. Maybe they have a nighttime nocturnal chart. Maybe the moon is their chart ruler. And so this person already has the energy of like the moon, and then we see the sun at the 28th degree. And now how do we use that to help us understand this person's emotional output? And we have to be careful with the word emotional, because a lot of people stereotype it because they don't want to be emotional. I'm not emotional. Oh, that's only some women are emotional. Emotions help drive you, and if your emotions are healthy, you can actually channel a lot of positive energy. And the sun at the 29th degree, prominence. Prominence, or being seen or noticed for something that you are talented in or skill that you potentially have. 29th degree energy is really good for that prominence and being seen and noticed. And sometimes you don't really have to do it for the fame. You're not doing it for that. But, you know, it does help feed a person's confidence and sense of self. The sun at 29th degree could be a person who is noticed for something they wrote years ago, and now all of a sudden it's popular. Someone who goes viral for something that they wrote, a song they did years ago that wasn't popular, but now someone brought it back up, and now it's, you know. The 29th degree can be a person who is seen or noticed around town. It does not have to mean that you have to be famous. I want us to be careful about this obsession. And I get it. People want to be famous. Everybody has a talent. Most people have a talent in some way, but all people are not going to be internationally, globally talented. Noticed. You can definitely be noticed locally. So you can have a person with sun in the third house, 29th degree, and they're locally known. They're the best mechanic in town. They have the best restaurant. This person was the best athlete in high school, right? Like the 29s are helpful. The 29th degree is helpful in that regard of being seen and noticed. And again, we don't choose these things all the time. So we have to understand when we have certain astrological placements that can be beneficial, we do not always choose this energy on our own. And again, if you're wondering, how did I come up with this degree system? How did I figure out what type of sun sign someone has by degree? And if you want to better and strengthen your interpretation skills, again, the course is up on Teachable Sun and Moon Deep Dive course. It is discounted for a limited amount of time because this is the launch of it. So please check it out and enroll.